All right, look at our new format here. I dare you to post this on Twitch as if this is a video game anybody would want to watch. But here we go. So remember in our theory video, right, that the best way to learn paraphrasing is to simply practice it. And our concern is twofold. The first concern we have is that we want to do the author of our passage justice. So we want to imagine that the author is going to look at our paraphrase and they are going to approve because we have empathized with their concerns. We have matched their voice, their mood, and their intent. Our second concern is to worry about and empathize with our audience. Is our audience going to be misled? Are they getting a clear and accurate picture of this? All right. So the best way to learn this is to simply try. This is the hardest part of the class to cover online. Other parts of the class I think will work very well online, but this is one where the best way to do this is to have multiple voices. So we can get a sense of what are the best words to choose and what are the different things that audiences are going to see. Because we are paraphrasing for an audience that is like everyone in this class, we want not a single person to be misled by our paraphrase. So what I've done for the video is I've compiled some of the most common examples I get from the class. So here we go. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to isolate this. And we are going to try to first come up with headlines for this U.S. budget article. So let's start by reading this little paragraph and coming up with our headlines. U.S. budget. Why are so few people actually informed about the budget when it is a public document? In 2016, for example, Obama had $522 billion, that is 52% of our discretionary budget, go to defense. These are the tax dollars that the president can choose what to do with. Here's a fun example. When you combine defense, homeland security, veterans affairs, and the defense and foreign policy contingencies, we've spent $767 billion on our military. That is 76% of the president's budget. I would rather spend this money on healthcare or education. To make matters worse, Trump has vowed to drastically increase the defense budget and cut the things I care about. I guess killing Iraqis is more important than your healthcare or education. And if you think this makes sense in our dangerous world, take note of the fact that Trump's proposed military budget is greater than all other countries of the world combined. Now, because this is a paraphrase, even if all of this information was wrong and the tone was completely offensive and misguided, our paraphrase wouldn't show that. Remember, we will do critiques of authors later. Right now, we are paraphrasing. We are empathizing with them. So even if this was all mistaken, all of these numbers were wrong, we wouldn't know that in our paraphrase. Our audience was simply getting a paraphrase, clear and accurate depiction of what the author has to say. But for what it's worth, these numbers are accurate and the tone is appropriate. So again, we would never know whether this was right or wrong information in our paraphrase. Our paraphrase is just capturing what the author is intending. But just so you know, this stuff is accurate. But again, it wouldn't matter. All right. So let's give our first stab, right? So let me show you a first stab at a possible headline. And what we are trying to do is seeing if does this accurately capture the author's mood, intent, and voice. And would the audience be misled by this? So let's look at some examples. First, let's see this. All right. First example, U.S. discretionary budget. What do you think of this? If we're looking at just this example, you would say that's an accurate depiction of the topic. But does it capture the mood, intent, or voice of our author? No, right? We would look at this and simply say, that's the topic, but it doesn't say anything about it. Remember, a good test is imagine that your audience is going to read your headline and then is going to read the article. Would your audience have a clear and accurate depiction of this piece? No. The topic, yes. But the mood and intent, no. What are we saying about the U.S. discretionary budget? And by the way, discretionary budget, probably too technical of a term for an ordinary audience as Gus. Discretionary budget? Very few people would know what that discretionary referred to. All right, so let's try some others. What about public misinformed about budget? What about this? What do you think? It is the first line captured well, But is that the main point of the piece? If all our audience is going to read are those 4 words, are they getting a clear picture? No. They're going to assume this whole article is about how misinformed the public is. And so you're going to hear maybe stats and some testimony about how dumb and misinformed the US public is. So again, wrong idea. What would you say? I would say this is a secondary point, maybe even a tertiary point of the article, not its main point. All right, let's try some others. What about these? Military, 76% of budget. President, $767 military budget, maybe billion budget, right? We could try different things, right? We're not getting this. But what do you think? These are informative, but are they capturing the full intent? We've got the information. Sorry, let me try to keep including the full thing. We've got information, but we don't have the intent or the mood here. Do you get what I'm saying? We look at this and we would say military, 76% of budget. Sounds good, it's informative, but we're not getting the anger. We're not getting the agenda of what the author is trying to say here. Clear? Try more. Let's try next one. What about these? U.S. budget favors military. Ooh, we're getting closer now. We're talking about the U.S. budget. That's going to probably give the audience the right idea. Does the budget favor the military? Clearly. But what's the problem with this one? What's the problem with this first one I just brought up now? What's the problem? It's completely neutral. It gives you the information. It gives you a sense of the nuance of the information. But this sounds positive. That sounds like a good article. For instance, if this article was about we should have more combat pay or something like that, then yeah, I would approve this headline. We would say, yes, we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing when it comes to the troops. But that's not what this article is about. This article isn't positive, and it's not sending the message about how we should be spending more on troops. That would be great. If the article was about that, U.S. budget favors military would be solid. But that's not the point of this article. What about the last one? President's budget prioritizes defense. Yes, it does. That's a good depiction of the information, but we're not capturing the mood. Do you see the point? The author is angry about an injustice. These make it sound like a good thing. So, different article. By the way, that is one thing I would write on tests, is if you're misleading, if you're completely misleading, you failed. But sometimes you're misleading in a more subtle way where the audience would be expecting a different article that they're reading. I would read these last 2 paraphrase headlines and say, that's a different article. Interesting article, but it's not this one. This one is very angry and it's pointing out something negative. What's next? Let's try this. What about defense prioritized, people neglected? Guns, yes. Health, no. Military wealthy, public poor. What do you think there? Here the problem is, because we've read this article, we know what it's about, and so we might not be misled, and we might appreciate the tone. These are now angry, but we're losing sight of the direct topic. Defense prioritized, people neglected. That could mean a lot of different things. Guns, yes. Health, no. What are we talking about here? We could be talking about multiple different articles. Military, wealthy, public, poor. Getting a little closer, but we need more specificity, right? We need something closer. We could be thinking of a bunch of different things. Get the idea? But we're getting there. Okay, let's go to the next ones. Defense budget too big, U.S. military budget excessive. Defense spending overwhelms budget. We're getting better. Do you see this? We're starting to get better. Now we have a subtle problem, and I'm wondering if any of you are seeing it. The only problem we're having now is people might start to think this is an article about the defense budget is over budget. It is running a deficit. We have a budget. Do you get the idea? We have a budget, but we've gone over it. We have spent too much for the military's budget to where it's in the hole, it's in the red. You get it? I do like the tone. We're getting really close. These would be very high graded. Each of these would get a little bit more points. We're almost at the perfect score. I would give these like B plus answers. Let's see if we can do a little better. Now watch this next move. U.S. budget excessively favors military. 5 words, so that would get a deduction, but that is great. If we had 5 words to use, now please note, I don't pick 4 words just to be mean. I pick 4 words because of the difficulty. What I want from this exercise is for you to be forced to use the best words you can to focus only on the main point. These headlines are often the hardest part of this, and the point is to make the other paraphrases much easier. Especially next week, the real goal is to get to a structured paraphrase. If you can do headlines, the main point paraphrase in the structure is much easier. So, let's see what we can do. I think we're getting really close. Let me make room. What do we have? Now notice what's happening here. I am going to erase a bunch of this stuff so we can look at just these things. What about these? Military funded, nothing else. U.S. budget, military fetish. I don't know about the word fetish, but you get the tone. Do you think the author would approve of words like fixation and fetish? I think the author would. I think this is the tone the author is giving. Notice, U.S. budget, military fixation. Are we getting the comparative point? Because there seems to be a comparative point being made in this paragraph. That the point isn't just that the military gets a lot of money, it's that other things aren't. And so I think now we're starting to get those ideas. These are, I think, as good as can be done in 4 words. Couldn't you do better? Yes, maybe some of you have done similar moves and you've got a better headline than I've got here. But notice what we've got. We've got, and especially in these last 3, we've got the U.S. budget. So now we're not thinking this is just some personal budget. We're not thinking it's another country. We're not thinking it's some person's household. So it's focused on the right topic. And then these are the kinds of words that I think set the right tone. This is about the military, but it's saying something negative about how the funding is being prioritized. If we had more words, 5 words, we would nail it. We saw that a second ago. 4 words, these are about as good as we can do. I really like the last one. Maybe there's some way we could tinker with this word to get it better, but it has a negative connotation, and it's showing that the military is getting the budget and other things aren't. I think that's about as good as it could be. The real payoff now is when we get to our sentence, because we've thought so much about our main point that now we can think of our sentence as simply being, now we have as many words as we want. And so we know what we're trying to say in our main point because of our headline. And so now we have as many words as we want to say it. The basic advice here is think of your sentence as clearly laying out the main point very clearly, very specifically with nuance, mood, and intent. Now, if the main point is easy to say, if it's something very straightforward, then you might have more room in your sentence to where you could start bringing in what we'll call secondary points. If the main point can be clearly stated in just a handful of words, then why not use the rest of your sentence to give a little more information to your audience? Now, this one, let's see what we would do with this. Now, first, I think we would start our sentence by clearly saying that we're talking about the U.S. budget. Maybe we even give some more words to make this even clearer for our audience, right? So we could say something like this. We could say, the U.S. budget, right? What else? So we've got our topic. The topic is the U.S. budget. What are we trying to say about the U.S. budget? We are trying to say that it excessively favors the military. Well, that sounds good. The U.S. budget excessively favors, let's say this, military spending. Now, good. We've got the mood, right? We've got the tone. The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending. We're thinking of the right budget. We've got the right tone. Now, is that all we wanted to say? No. If this was simply just the main point, we would have it. I think there it is. So if this was a main point paraphrase, period, end of sentence, we did a good job. But because we are trying to say more, we have a full sentence, not just the main point, not just a single claim. We'll talk about this when we get to the structured paraphrase. Because this isn't just a single claim, I think we should bring in more information to help our audience. The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending. And what isn't it spending money on? We look at the article, it says things like healthcare and education. That seems to be the secondary points here. There are a bunch of third-level points. Killing Iraqis, people are uninformed. Maybe we add that if we want this to be a really detailed sentence, but I would say something like this. The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending over all other public concerns. What do you think of that? Is that too nerdy? Now again, if I am working this and this is a big quiz and I'm given this example, I would do a bunch of little drafts here. I would think of things like, what else could I say? How about over concerns for healthcare or education? What do you think? The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending over all other public concerns. What about if we do that? Such as healthcare or education. What do you think? The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending over all other public concerns, such as healthcare or education. What do you think? It's brilliant. Do you see it? Because we've taken the time on the headlines, which are incredibly annoying, we could come up with sentences that are really solid. The U.S. budget excessively favors military spending over all other concerns, such as healthcare or education. Good. All right, let's look at our second example. Good. Let me read it first. It's a uterus, not a clown car. Do you get it? Right? You know what a clown car is? A clown car is when you have like a little Mini Cooper, right? You park it in the middle of the tent of the circus and 14 clowns jump out. Do you get the metaphor? Okay. If any of you share my sense of humor, you think that's funny. The rest of you, I am so sorry, but I think that's super funny. All right, sorry. It's a uterus, not a clown car. All of these cases of quintuplets and septuplets get so much touchy-feely treatment from the media that most of the public are failing to see the significance of this medical practice. In vitro fertilization is standardly done by fertilizing several eggs in the lab and injecting anywhere from 3 to 8 embryos into the prospective mother. Since the odds are very bad that any single egg will actually make it through to produce a live birth, most clinics play the odds and hope that only one of the multiple embryos will carry it to full term. Yes, this is a procedure that hopes that most of these fetuses will miscarry. And yes, you English majors, it is fetuses, it's not feti like octopi. Sorry. Okay. Even worse is the fact that a woman's body is not made to carry so many fetuses. Ooh, that's a typo, right? That should say woman's body. Sorry. Most of these children, if a few of them or 7 make it to term, will be born with serious disabilities. Shouldn't IVF be rightfully considered child endangerment? All right, so let's look at this. Let's put out some different drafts of headlines. This is a good way to work. One good way to work, let's give some advice on test taking, is to give a bunch of forward headlines and try not to get so fixated on one style, right? Try to back off, give very different headlines so you're not just giving a bunch of different versions of the same ideas. Another way to work is to focus on keywords. Maybe list out like, here are the 6 keywords I want to include. Now, how do I choose more perfect words so that I get this down to 4? Well, let's start looking at some of these. One obvious example would be this, right? So let's look at this one. IVF, right? Child endangerment. What do you think of that? IVF child endangerment. Now, what is the tone? Does the article simply say it's child endangerment, or is it questioning, right? Is it up for an argument? Is it trying to get you to think about this? Yes. So what do we want to say? Maybe IVF, possibly child endangerment? Seems pretty good. Now let's look at that. IVF, possibly child endangerment. What do you think? Remember, you want to imagine that you are an audience that hasn't read this article and you're about to read the article. If all you had was the headline, would you have a good preview? Would you have a good sense of what this article is about? I hope you're seeing the problem. What's the problem? IVF. Your audience is going to have no idea what that's about. Now, maybe 1 or 2 out of 30 people in the class know what IVF refers to, but normal people wouldn't. This is not an acronym that's in general Gus. So what if we did this? What if we said in vitro fertilization? And now notice, let's play with this one. In vitro fertilization. So far, what do we have? Now, it is a hyphenated word. So if we were to say in vitro fertilization, that would be 2 words. Now, please, you are not Germans. You can't constantly sandwich different words together and make new big words. But that is actually a hyphenated word in the way it is said. So 2 words, in vitro fertilization. So let's see. Now, let's just pause right there. Before we go on to add other words, let's see if we've done better. Is the phrase in vitro fertilization better than IVF? Of course it is. But is this enough to give your audience the right idea? I think, please think about this, I think we've now captured about 1/3 more of our audience, but we still haven't captured our whole audience. Yes, some of you have a background where you know what in vitro fertilization refers to, but most people don't, or even if you say most people do, not everyone does. If all I said was in vitro fertilization, our whole audience might still be, at least a lot of them, misled by this. What is it talking about? So let's keep going. This is an incredibly hard article to paraphrase. What if we did something? Here's what they used to do. They used to call these test tube babies. How about that for a paraphrase? Is that now we've used 3 words, do we have the right idea? I don't think we've caught that much more of our audience. Some of our audience might remember that test tube babies referred to this idea. Now notice, if we're looking at the article takes the time. Look at these sentences here. The article takes the time to define the procedure. And I think we need to do that. We can't leave this alone. Now, just for fun, look at what we might want to say. Test tube babies, dangerous. I love that. What does that make you think of? If you are like me and you're incredibly immature, I am thinking that these are babies hatched in giant test tubes and they come out wielding knives or something, right? Good. I love it, but not our article. That is an article I would much rather read than this one. That's going to mislead our audience. So what do we do with this? Let's try to come up with different words to try to not mislead or to not be so confusing for our audience. What about if we said something like this? What if we said fertilization procedure? Good. Now look at this. I think we're getting decent. Oops, sorry, I'm doing a lot of mistyping. Fertilization procedure. How about this? Endangers? What about something like that? Endangers children. Maybe fetuses? Right? We got to decide. How about fetuses? And now notice, the article is careful here to not take some stance on abortion or something like this. So it's just saying endangers fetuses, and then it says the born children might have serious disabilities. What about this, though? Fertilization procedure endangers fetuses. Now, let's just focus on that first part, right? So let me separate these. Fertilization procedure. What are you thinking now? The problem now is people are going to start thinking of what? Different fertilization procedures, such as, forgive me, but this is what it is, just turkey-based or artificial insemination. What is this? This is not the same thing as in vitro fertilization. The article makes it clear that this is fertilizing embryos outside of the womb and then inserting them into the prospective mother. Artificial insemination is something else. This is simply, again, taking a little mini turkey baster and injecting sperm into a prospective mother. Different procedure. That procedure is perfectly safe. This is a much more invasive procedure where you're injecting multiple fertilized embryos. So why don't we say that? Why don't we say injecting multiple embryos? Oops, sorry for all the typos. Injecting multiple embryos. Are we getting the right procedure now? Now, notice that I use the word embryos, because if we really step back, and if we step back and isolate this thing completely, and if we said injecting multiple eggs or something, we might start thinking that this is about animals and not humans. Or I think if we use a word like embryos, we're getting people to realize that if they're thinking of all sorts of different things, embryos connotes human beings. Injecting multiple embryos. Now, here's an issue. Do we need to say fertilized? If you're a big nerd, you would say that, well, an embryo is already fertilized. But I don't know if that's in collective Gus. So notice, we're taking 4 words here just to get the procedure right. So can we reduce this? Multiple seems important, but we need some connotation. If we had 5 words, we could say this. Now the tone is questioning. So look at this. Injecting multiple fertilized embryos dangerous. That's it. I think we have gotten the procedure down clearly. We have got the question mark because this is the tone. Now notice, we want to be careful. We don't want to ask rhetorical questions, but we're not. The article is really asking if this should be seen as dangerous. But 5 words. What do we do? If it wasn't for the multiple embryos, this might not be dangerous at all. And again, we're just going off the article, but in the real world, implanting one embryo isn't dangerous at all. It's just playing the odds and implanting too many that proposes the dangers. So what would we get rid of? Well, I think the decision's easy. I think we need multiple, and the word we lose out on that I wish we could include just because it's helpful for our audience, but we could take out fertilized. Injecting multiple embryos dangerous. Are we thinking of humans here? Are we thinking of the right sort of procedure? Not just injecting sperm, but embryos? Dangerous question mark. Good. I think this is as good as we can do. All right, so now let's look at this sentence paraphrase. If we were looking for a simple sentence that is the main point, our headline has given that away, and that's great, right? So we have the main point clear. We would say something like, injecting multiple embryos is a dangerous fertilization procedure. Good, got it? But that's just the main point. But we want to help our audience out as much as possible. Now, we wanted to avoid the phrase in vitro fertilization because in a headline, our audience doesn't know what that is. Of course, we'd want to avoid IVF. But now we have a sentence. This means that we can define what an in vitro fertilization is as part of our sentence. And I think that is a technical term that would be helpful for our audience. So in a sentence, I think we can use it as long as we define it. So let's try. So our sentence could start with in vitro fertilization. Good. Should we leave that alone? Of course not. What do? We would need to define it. So I'm going to insert a little dependent clause here, right? The fertilization procedure. Notice, this is going to almost be a sentence itself. The fertilization procedure that implants multiple, and notice I'm being a little redundant to help out my audience, multiple fertilized embryos into the prospective mother. Now, is that a mouthful? Yes, it's a mouthful, but is it clear and helpful for our audience? In vitro fertilization, the fertilization procedure that implants multiple fertilized embryos into the prospective mother. Whew. But notice, that's just a dependent clause. That is just a definition of what in vitro fertilization is. Now notice, I am making a decision that I think we should include this technical term and this definition. You could avoid the technical term and just start with the definition, but I think this is helpful. I think our audience should know what the technical term is. So now, what are we trying to say? This was all just a dependent clause. So what is the author trying to say about this? We spent all these words to make it clear what this technical term meant. And now, what's the agenda? What is the mood and intent of the author? What do we say? In vitro fertilization. Now notice the tone. The tone isn't that this is definitely dangerous, but that it could be. And in fact, we can see that the danger is in how many embryos you implant. Now we're trying to say a lot, so let's try to keep this clean. In vitro fertilization, definition filled in, could be dangerous to mothers, fetuses, sorry for all the typos, and children. What do you think of that? Now notice, could we add a little bit more of these secondary points? Our main sentence is the main point, and we added a little secondary definition in the middle, but this is still a grammatically correct sentence. We could even mess with this more and say, in vitro fertilization, the fertilization procedure given touchy-feely treatment by the media that implants multiple fertilized embryos into the prospective mother. I think we're really clouding up our sentence if we play with these secondary and tertiary points too much. I think this is a solid sentence. Do you agree? Good. I think that's really solid. All right, for these last examples, we'll try to speed it up. I think I'm running into like child labor laws by making you watch these videos for too long. So let me try a different technique. What we'll do on these last examples is I will simply give a series of answers and talk about them and have them increase in quality. Sort of like what we did before, but more streamlined. I'll go directly to answers instead of jabbering on so much. All right, so here's our next example. War on Terror. Is the war on terror a good idea? I can see how our former wars on concepts like poverty and drugs have been such successes that those things don't exist anymore. But what if this war on a concept actually increases terror? Every other country in the world said it would, and these other countries are far more familiar with terror than we are. So, we need to imagine that we are an audience that hasn't read this article, and all they are going to do is read our headlines and try to have the right idea about the article. Let's start with what I'll call my F answers. Wars on concepts suck. What's wrong there? That would get a little bit of credit on a quiz, but you can see it's incredibly vague. You have really no sense of what the concepts they're talking about are. You are expecting an article that could be about many, many different things. And so, very vague and misleading. I wouldn't know what to expect if that was all I saw. Next, D answer. Terror war bad concept. We've at least got something about terror and war. We don't know which war we're talking about, what terrorism we're talking about. Bad concept, pretty vague, but a little bit of credit for terror war. All right, so now let's get to ones that are passing sort of answers. And let's talk about how you should be reading these things. So when you come up with a draft of an answer, try to be objective and look at it, assuming you haven't read this article yet. You've read the article yourself, you've given your headline, but then try to put yourself in the shoes of an audience. Next, terror war increases terror. Pretty good. Notice now we're getting the mood, the intent. This is a negative article. It's not just a basic topic. Terror war increases terror. The only problem here is how vague it is. What war are we talking about? And of course, any terrorism is going to increase terror. So are we talking about terrorism, or are we talking about just Afghanistan? Are we talking about just Iraq, Syria? What are we talking about? But I like the mood. The mood is good. Next. War on terror. Here is the issue. A key issue is whether we need these 3 words, war on terror. And I think we do. If we try to shorten those 3 words into something like terror war, we're now going to think of a particular war, where the war on terror is, I'm sorry to say, a brand. It also clearly tells you what country this is. If we say terror war, this could be something happening in Sri Lanka or Indonesia or anywhere in the world, South France. War on terror makes it so that now we know we're talking about the United States and we're talking about various wars on terror, at least Iraq and Afghanistan. And backfires ? Has brilliant connotations. The only problem with this, why it doesn't get an A, is the backfires might have the wrong tense. If you look at this article, it is written in future tense. In fact, to tell you the truth, I wrote this article before the war on terror began. I wrote this when we were just starting the war on terror, and so it's predicting that it might backfire. Where this headline for the B answer right here makes it sound like this has already happened. Where the article is all future tense. Notice, you've got to be careful. If you read carefully, the war on terror hasn't started yet in the tense that this article is written in, so that's the small drawback of this B answer. So, A answer, what do you think? I think this is perfect. This is as good as it gets. War on terror, counterproductive. Do you see the idea? We've got war on terror clear, and now counterproductive. We've avoided the tense problem of backfires, and it's purely speculative, might be counterproductive. Now let's look at sentence. Main point, the headline should make the sentence easy. Let's look at different sentences. F answer. The U.S. declares war on a concept. Notice, there is a lot of ink in this passage spent on the war on a concept. War on poverty and drugs, and that stuff is all funny and ironic. That's cute. But is that the main point? If we only have room for a short sentence, we're not going to waste it on the war on a concept idea. And of course, this one, a terrible F, because we don't even know which concept war we're talking about. D answer. Try that. This war, like our other wars on concepts, is a bad idea. At least saying this war probably gets our audience thinking of one of the wars on terror a little closer, but again, we shouldn't be fixating on the war on a concept idea if all we have is a sentence. Try C. The U.S.'s terror war could increase terror. This is good, but you've already read the article. So right now, you might think this is very specific. This could be this could be just Syria. War on terror, increased terror. And also notice, it could be a little misleading. What we should talk about is that this is increasing terrorism. To say that it increases terror is not saying much because war is terrifying. So we need to be careful that we're focusing on terrorism and not just fear or something else. So now some really good ones. B answers. The U.S. war on terror may prove to be a misguided and counterproductive strategy. Great, really great. The U.S. war on terror could prove to backfire and actually increase terrorism. Absolutely great. Those might even be A answers. Except notice what an even better answer would do. It would give more detail that would help the audience out even more. I know this answer, look at it, is just almost too much. The U.S. war on terror is a misguided strategy that may actually increase terrorism. Notice, terrorism, not just terror, as other countries that are more familiar with terrorism are predicting. I'm sorry, but that's pretty much the whole article in one nice, clean sentence. Good grammar, solid work. Here's our next example. The American Family Association called on its members to boycott gas from Citgo gas stations because it is a subsidiary of Venezuela's national oil company. They did not want to support a democratic socialist government. They prefer sending money to dictatorships and human rights abusers like Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Chad, Angola. Notice, you've got to be a really good reader here and note that this is irony, this is sarcasm, this is sardonic. This is sarcasm and irony, so we have to capture that in our headlines and paraphrases. So be careful. So if we start, let's go our quick method of looking at different qualities of headlines. Okay, so start with our headline. First one, look at this. F answers. AFA boycotts Citgo. Do you see what's wrong with this one? Here, let me separate it out a little bit. Do you see what's wrong here? If you haven't read this article, you have no idea what the AFA is, and you don't. In our city, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, we don't have any Citgos. So people aren't even thinking of gas stations for the most part, unless they happen to live in a place that has those gas stations. So Citgo's very unhelpful. We've got boycotts, but we have no idea what this is about. Now look at this one. Family Association boycotts oil. We've got Family Association, which is much better than AFA, but still boycotts oil. Sounds like they're boycotting the use of all oil, which, hey, that could be pretty cool, but that's incredibly misleading. The Family Association's boycott is not even that smart. Try this one. D answers. Family Association boycotts Venezuela. Little better. That gets some credit. Family Association is better than AFA. Boycotts Venezuela. Again, just too vague. Venezuelan oil boycott ignorant. Oops, sorry, I left my notes. Good. If we write it this way, what's going on? We're going to think that this is Venezuela that is boycotting oil. The Venezuelan oil boycott is misleading as to what the subject is and what the target is. To say it's ignorant is smart, but our audience might be completely misled thinking that Venezuelans are boycotting oil. So let's try better. C answers. Pretty good. Family Association's ignorant boycott. Good. Now we're getting the mood, but we don't have the topic. I wish it said something about Venezuela or oil, although of course we're going to often run into problems where 4 words is just not enough. Jeff is cruel, but we're just going to do our best. Family Association's misguided boycott. Great mood, great wording, great intent, just not enough information. Let's see what's next. Better. Boycotting Venezuelan oil hypocritical. Better. Notice, we've decided here that we don't have room to say Family Association, but it's so vague that maybe we should save those words for more information about what the boycott is about. And so, I think this is a good decision. Boycotting Venezuelan oil hypocritical. We've got the mood, we've got the boycott, we've got Venezuela. We're almost there. Just slightly better word than hypocritical would be misdirected. Notice, to say something is hypocritical is to say that you are making a mistake, such as you are doing it and somebody else isn't. You're making other people do things that you don't do. So hypocritical has a little bit of a too vague of a connotation, where if we say boycotting Venezuelan oil misdirected, we're getting more content here. The problem with this boycott is it's targeting the wrong places. To target Venezuela is to miss out on what you're actually targeting, which is bad governments in bad countries. And what does the article presume? Look at it. That there are far worse countries that we should be boycotting, not Venezuela. Good. So now, I wish we had more words. We don't. And that's why this should make our sentence easy. So let's look at sentences. Sentence. Now notice. This time I have just jumped right to the perfect paraphrase. Now, of course, no paraphrases are perfect, but look at this thing. The American Family Association's boycott of oil from Social Democratic Venezuela is an ignorantly misdirected protest because then we'll just buy more oil from countries that are dictatorships and human rights abusers. Good. Maybe you could even go so far as to list the countries, but this is getting to be kind of a cumbersome sentence, but it's hard to do better than that. That seems great. Now a quick aside. Notice the little note at the bottom. These boycotts are completely ignorant of how oil production and distribution works. I am so sorry. Let me say a few things about this. Brief ideological political tangent, although I'm going to avoid, any Democrat, liberal, any kind of thing like this. Note. When we buy oil from a gas station, and that gas station is a corporation that gets its oil from all over the place. American companies buy oil on a commodities exchange, and they could be getting oil from all sorts of places. Now, where is the most likely place that your oil is coming from? Mexico and Canada. Then, third, probably Saudi Arabia, and then all sorts of various countries. You cannot pick your oil country you're getting in your gas tank because the gas station gets it from everywhere. Even Citgo gas stations, yes, it's a subsidiary of Venezuela, but on any given day, the oil even at a Citgo could come from anywhere. There are gas stations for BP, British Petroleum. Does that mean they're coming from Britain? No, it's just a corporation getting its oil from all over the place. Do I wish there were gas stations where it was clear where they were getting their oil from? Yes. We get a tiny, tiny bit of our oil from the Netherlands. If there was a Netherlands gas station that promised to only have Netherlands gas, I would drive really far to get my gas from it. But that's not how these things work. All right, sorry. Okay, let me stop. Next example. So now this one's fun. Oh, if you found this funny, God bless you for having my sense of humor. I thought this was hilarious, and it took me a while to write it just right. Just when you thought the use of performance-enhancing drugs couldn't get worse, the world of figure skating is being rocked by doping allegations. Notice the writing. Sounds like how they talk. 3 top-ranking male figure skaters tested positive for estrogen levels 10 times those of 13-year-old girls at the height of puberty. Jess Felboda. Notice the word? It's just a rearrangement of my name. The leader of the activist group Ethicists Against Athletes, totally made this up, read a statement to the media. Though estrogen is not known to increase agility or strength, it showed dramatic rises in what is known in the industry as general fabulousness. As such, this would give them an unfair advantage in key skills like twirling, hand-waving, and the all-important sequins to tassels category. Sequins are those little shiny discs, right? Good. Tassels, you know what those are. It is clear that these athletes used a foreign performance-enhancing substance and should be punished. Sorry. Oh, I love this thing. All right, so in our new example, let's give it a headline. I'm going to try to be even speedier now. Sorry this is taking so long. First attempts. Figure skaters are fabulous. I guess we have figure skaters. We got the word fabulous. That does seem to be key, but this is a completely different article we would be expecting. We would be expecting an article praising figure skaters. Try the next ones. Skaters abusing estrogen. Okay, 2 problems here. If I write skaters and I haven't read the article, I'm thinking skateboarders. If I say skaters out of context, our audience, now maybe not your grandparents, they might think figure skaters, but we are going to think skateboarding. And if I say abusing, we've got the wrong connotations. Sorry, damn it, I'm not mature. We are now thinking that these are a bunch of skateboarders going into an alley and huffing a bunch of estrogen to get high. No, this isn't about drug abuse. This is about doping for, sports cheating. So, wrong idea. Next ones, C answers. Male skaters, female hormones. The problem is still skaters, but now we're getting this male-female hormones thing. It's getting closer, but might be misleading. B answers. Male figure skaters doping. Better. Now notice we finally made room for male figure skaters, so we used 3 words. That's taking up a lot of room, but doping has the right connotations. I think you know that people usually only use the word doping when they're talking about drugs used for cheating in sports. Another one. So good. figure skaters cheating fabulousness. Doesn't have the drug references that I wish it does, but fabulousness, we were able to shoehorn that thing in there. So very good. Here are the only things I think are better. This is a real stretch. I am so sorry. This is almost cheating, but technically this would have a hyphen. Male figure skaters, fabulousness enhanced. Notice how great that is. That is really hard to get to, but it has, now notice the one below, I think is the best one I will see. If this was a test, I think some of you would come up with figure skaters doping estrogen. It's good. What is the only problem? It doesn't say male, so you might think this is female figure skaters, but in 4 words, that's as good as it gets. The second to last one is asking too much. That is very tricky, but of course that's great. It got the word fabulousness in there. Enhanced, I think, gives you the connotations of cheating at sports or doing something that's unfair. But the last one, great. I wish we had 5 words to put male in there, but I think you would agree that that's brilliant. Finally, almost done. Let's go to sentence. 3 top-ranking male figure skaters were caught using estrogen to get an unfair advantage in general fabulousness and should be punished. Do you see why that is so good? Has all of the content. It includes the idea that this is wrong and cheating, but it's also fun because this is a goofy article that's not real. I made it up. General fabulousness is in there. I would be impressed by this a great deal. Absolutely, I couldn't imagine a better paraphrase as a sentence. All right, we got through that. Thanks for listening. Bye.